Welcome to the first episode of the Soaring Tales. I'm Miriam Gerber and I'm a colleague and friend of Dr. Shivangi Mishra here at the University of Calgary. And I'm so excited that you're joining us today. This podcast is all about bringing you stories from the wild, science, conservation, and the people working on the front lines of protecting nature. And what a better way to launch our journey than on International Vulture Awareness Day 2025. Vultures have not always got the love that they deserve, but they are truly the unsung heroes of our ecosystems. Today, we'll be talking about these incredible birds with two amazing guests. First, Dr. Shivangi Mishra, who completed her PhD on Egyptian vultures in India and spent years in the field learning their secrets. And second, Zakie H., a master's student beginning exciting new research also in the field of vultures. So buckle up, and we've got soaring tales, science, and some myth busting ahead. So Shivangi, let's start with you. Can you tell us what first drew you to vultures and your PhD journey in India?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. People often ask me this question, and I was even asked this in my PhD defense, that what drew you to Egyptian vultures research? And to be honest, I would say that I didn't choose vultures, vultures chose me. My PhD supervisor gave me this topic as a challenge, and she looked at me and she was like, would you be able to do this work? This is not an easy task because you have to go into the slaughterhouses, bone meal factories, spend hours and hours of field work in the sun, and this is not something very fancy. So I gave it a thought and I was like, well, if it is that difficult, it is worth doing. And I took that challenge. So I love taking challenges, and with God's grace, I completed this challenge. But along the way, I realized something doing my research on Egyptian vultures, spending long hours in the field. I saw them, that how incredible these species are. And I stopped seeing them as just my PhD topic. And I have developed a sense of connection with them. And every time going to the field, I used to think about them, that how misunderstood these species are, and yet how vital they are for the ecosystem. So they are not dirty scavengers that just stay there on the carcasses and those things. They are the nature's cleanup crew, and they are vital for the balance of ecosystem, for the healthy ecosystem. And so yeah, that what started as a challenge became my passion. And I realized that it is the beauty of research, that sometimes you have to take the hardest paths to lead to the most meaningful discoveries, and they shape not just you in your career, but also how you see the world. So it was an interesting journey, and I love that.
And what is special about Egyptian vultures? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I call them my handsomes because they are one of the most beautiful vulture species. They are not very huge. They are one of the smallest vulture species, but they are very fascinating. So I'll tell you one unique habit of them, that they are one among the few birds that uses tools to break the yeah, and they have been reported to use stones to break the ostrich egg. And and this was very interesting to know that, and I have observed some of their related behavior during my fieldwork days. And there is always a hierarchy in the vultures, that when there is a carcass, the bigger vultures come and feed first, and the smaller ones come after, and then forage upon the rest of the part. But we know that the other species are declining so much, like the gyps and the bigger vultures. So now Egyptian vultures have to find ways to get into the carcass and feed upon. So I have seen that observe them using sticks to open the carcass. And I recorded that. It was amazing. Yeah. And I was like, oh, great. They are intelligent birds. They are very intelligent. And it was good to notice and observing their behavior is always like opening secrets of the wild.
That is so fascinating. And can you talk a little bit about conservation challenges, especially relating to Egyptian vultures?
Okay, yeah. So talking about challenges, there were many, but especially if you are doing field work, like I would first say that the field work is not a fancy thing. You have to travel longer hours, you have to stay in the sun for long hours, and sometimes you don't even get to see a single vulture. And at times I was like, what what have I signed up for? Is it worth doing? But then I realized that after some experiences in the wild, every time when I used to see the vultures soaring above in the sky, I was like, yeah, it is worth doing. And all the research challenges made me realize that every sighting is like a victory. Sometimes it's very hard in the field, in the sun, and some talking about logistics, if sometimes we were when we were going on the field, the community, local people and the community members, they were like, who are these guys with big DSLR cameras and just roaming around in our field? And we had to like make them understand that, look, we are researchers, we are not journalists, and we are not doing anything else. We are just we are here to do our work, and this is what we are doing. So yeah, it was all the time a challenging work, but I enjoyed it because it made me realize that what comes after the challenge is worth having it. Yeah.
And so what are some of the specific threats that affect the Egyptian vulture at this point in time?
Okay, so there are several threats like electrocution. I have observed during my field work that there were some times I have seen electrocuted Egyptian vultures. There were competition with other species like feral dogs. They were very aggressive at times, and I've recorded that. And then there sometimes there are negative cultural myths. And but what struck me most was lack of awareness. Why I'm saying this is that because if you don't know that how important these species are, the science cannot do anything. If you are not like talking to people and talking diverse talking about perceptions, then it's very difficult to conserve them. So I'll tell you one incident that made me realize that how important it is to do a lot more awareness. There was this breeding site, one of the breeding sites of Egyptian vulture, and some of the community members, local people, came to me and they were like, these are big ugly birds that kill smaller birds, so we destroy their eggs. They used to throw the eggs of Egyptian vultures out of the nest, just thinking that they're doing something good for other species. But that was horrible and it was heartbreaking. And when I came to know that, I was like, ooh, I mean, you are destroying the egg of a species which is a slow breeder, which lays only 1 or 2 eggs in a year, and you are destroying that. So it's like very emotional moment for me, and I was like, I had to control my my aggression or whatever you can call it. Like I was like, no, this is not the way. You cannot enter in the nature's trophic level and chain. And that's why I realized that it is very important to do more and more awareness. I reached out to schools and local people. I made my own team of volunteers, and I used to do a lot of awareness work after that because it's very important.
And speaking of the importance of making sure that these birds have a fighting chance, what is their role in the ecosystem? What do they do?
Yeah, so they are the nature's cleanup crew, and we cannot imagine a balanced ecosystem without vultures. To every one of us, it might be like, no, because we don't often notice what they do, but they are doing the unpaid services. They are doing the unpaid cleaning services and making the ecosystem balanced and healthy. And if they are not there, it can cause ripple effects to other wildlife and disease outbreaks and livestock stocks, and then it can impact humans alike. So it's like conserving vultures is not like conservation of one species. It's like conservation or making a balanced ecosystem for the planet. Yeah.
Okay. And you already mentioned a little bit how you started to have your own team of volunteers basically doing some education on a local level. Are there any other stories that you can share with us about your work in the field and how you were trying to bring some of the enthusiasm and awareness that you acquired to the local people as well?
So yeah, like I said, that awareness is the key. And one funny moment I would tell you about the Egyptian vulture research time. When I saw the first nest of Egyptian vulture, one of my colleagues, she started saying that this is not Egyptian vulture's nest, and we are wasting our time waiting for some bird species to come and then prove that this is Egyptian vulture's nest. And I was like, wait a little, have some patience. And then something amazing happened. After spending like 40 or 45 minutes, we saw 2 adult Egyptian vultures hovering around the nest. And one of them just sat right in the nest, and the other one was guarding at the top of the temple, because this nest was on the top of the temple. And this is an old ancient Lord Shiva temple. So the nest was right at the top, and the adults came. And so, as if they were saying that, look, she is right. This is our home. And so nature has its own way of proving you right. You just have to have some patience, have to wait. It's not easy to get the result immediately, but you have to wait.
Yeah.
And things like this happen. So it was a funny moment and also lifetime memory for me.
For sure.
Because this was the first nest, and then I got several.
Wow. Thank you, Shivangi. That really shows how deeply the vultures are connected both to the ecosystem, but also to the people and now the researcher. So I love how your work highlights not just the science, but also the human stories around conservation. So let's bring Zakie into the conversation as well. So you've started your master's research on vulture gut microbiomes, something many of us probably don't know a whole lot about. So can you explain a little bit more about your project and why you're interested in vultures?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm new to the vulture scene. I didn't start out that way. When I met with my PI, she introduced me to different topics she had in her lab. And the vulture project that she had going on was eye-catching. It was the first thing I thought of that I wanted to do, so I kind of stuck with that. I was in microbiology in my undergraduate, studying random bacteria in a lake. So it's a very different route. But yeah, the microbiome is the gut microbiome itself. There's many microbiomes, but the gut one is specifically what's inside your gut, your intestines, your stomach, mostly the intestines. And it's all the microorganisms, so bacteria, viruses, archaea, and eukaryotes, microeukaryotes that live in your gut. And they have a huge impact on health. This research is continuing. And so it's a very interesting area to research. I won't go delve too deep into it because it goes down a little bit of a scientific rabbit hole that's a little bit too much. But in the learning about the vulture project, I started to research vultures more, and they are fascinating creatures that I am just in love with learning about them because they're so unique, with most of them being obligate scavengers compared to other species that hunt more. And it certainly raises an interesting question with the microbiome, because as you're eating primarily dead things, or the carrion as they call it, there's a lot of bacteria or pathogens that usually will make creatures sick that eat it. And yet vultures eat it all the time and are fine. So it's certainly an interesting area to research and see if their gut microbiome plays a role in how they survive eating all these disease-filled meats.
Fascinating. And so what are you hoping to discover with your master's project?
I'm hoping to discover anything unique, see if there's anything special about vultures compared to other organisms. But I'm hoping more to spread awareness on how unique the vultures are and why we should conserve them. As Shivangi was saying, they are very important to the ecosystem and they are nature's cleanup crew. So I hope to more than discover, raise awareness of that and just bring to light how unique these creatures are.
Yeah.
They're huge, diverse group vultures. We call them vultures, but vultures isn't really a scientific term because there's two different groups of birds that are called vultures. Some that are in, they call them New World and Old World. We don't have to get into the calling them New and Old World, but the New World ones, there's 6 of them. I'm sorry, 7 of them.
Yeah.
And they're in North America and South America. And the Old World ones that are in Africa, Europe, and Asia, there's 16 species of them. And they're vast ranges. They have, the smallest ones have a wingspan of 1.6 meters, which is close to what the Egyptian vulture is.
Yeah.
And the largest ones have a wingspan of 3.2 meters. So in this one group, the wingspan doubles, which is incredibly unique, and it's something I'm really interested to dive into and learn if there's any differences between them. It would be neat to see if there's any difference between New World and Old World, but we'll see as research goes along.
Yeah.
Right. And what are your hopes, or what do you think that young scientists like yourself can contribute to conservation more broadly?
I think the biggest thing we can do is just sit down and talk and raise awareness for it, because as Shivangi was saying, the biggest thing you can do to help endangered species is to raise awareness for them. More than, I think, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think more than half the vulture species are on some level of endangered list.
Yeah.
They range from being critically endangered to threatened.
Oh, yeah.
But with that many of them on that list, I think it's important to just raise awareness of it. Because as Shivangi was saying, a lot of people associate them with negative things. They see them as bringers of death or disease, when without them, there would be death and disease. They actually clean it up.
Oh, yeah.
They clean up death by cleaning up the carcasses, which would provide a nice visual thing for most people. They don't have to look at the dead carcasses. And they stop the spread of disease by removing those carcasses that are grouping points for these disease bacteria.
Yeah.
So I think raising awareness is the biggest thing. They're so neat. I'm learning about them now, for like starting to learn them for the first time, and I couldn't be more interested in the diversity of them and just how neat they are. Like I read one thing about how they, when they're eating the carcass, certain ones will, if it's I think it was a cow, the hide is really thick. So the vultures have to find different ways to get into the meat because they can't get through the hide. So any of the orifices that they find, so be it the mouth or the other end, they'll just stick their head in and just eat the insides of them, which I think is maybe a little bit disturbing, but also very neat that they just find access to eat the whatever they have to.
Well, yeah, and I would add to this that Egyptian vultures are opportunistic feeders, and they eat upon diverse range of things. Like I think that's one of the reasons that makes them unique and also adapted in the changing conditions. So yeah, it's always interesting to know more and discover new insights.
Yeah, I you just taught me now that the Egyptian vulture is one of the few that isn't an obligate scavenger.
Yeah.
They will hunt if they have to.
Oh, yeah.
Pharaoh's chicken, I love it.
Yeah, and that's why they are one of the most intelligent bird species, and I appreciate them for that. I really admire them. I love Egyptian vultures, and I can't stop talking about them. So pardon me if I talk a lot.
And have you observed them actually hunting during your fieldwork?
Yeah, I have pictures of them like hunting upon the rodents.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
So Zakie, what would you say excites you most about your journey as you are embarking on your research?
I think it's the discovery of it. Vultures are really, there's not a lot that's known about them. People don't like them. So there's a really cool, obviously research is all about finding new things. So there's a really cool aspect to studying things that aren't looked at as much.
Yeah.
There's been some research on them, but there's that disdain for them because of their association with death. So I think it's really neat to delve into an area that people don't really like to look at, and I'm excited to bring awareness to it. And I don't know, I just love them. They're so neat. Like, even when you look at them, obviously we know a lot about the Egyptian vulture. We have the expert here. They have their furry look to them with the white fur. I think sometimes they can be brown as well, and
Yeah.
the yellow beak. And then there's another favorite of mine is the king vulture, where they have this very bright colored neck. Yeah, it's a very like bright different colored neck. And so I love the different looks that you have in them. There's ones that it's the turkey vulture, is a New World vulture that, as the name says, kind of looks a little bit like a turkey.
Yeah, and it has a strong sense of smell, and it makes turkey vulture unique, that they can smell.
So you both touched on how they're not perceived really very favorably in diverse cultures. Has that always been the case, or has there been historically a different perception of vultures?
So talking about Egyptian vultures, they are known as Egyptian vultures because they are very sacred in Egyptian culture. And it has been documented that they are the symbol of motherhood and protection. They are very revered in Egyptian cultures. Also in Indian culture, there are some incidents, some historical stories where they have been seen as the messenger of God. And also I have documented some of those folklores in one of my articles in a magazine, Savers, where I have written about, like, in how many cultures I have tried to compile that information, that how many cultures Egyptian vultures are significant. And talking about other species also, like one of the gyps species, it is named as Jatayu vulture, and it is also one of the very, very culturally significant vulture species in our ancient Hindu literature. And it is mentioned in the epic, the Ramayana, that this vulture species sacrificed his life in order to save goddess Sita from being abducted by the demon king Ravan.
Oh,
So this vulture is like considered very pious, and yeah, it's highly significant in Indian culture.
that's
So
fascinating.
not only the negative myths, but there are good things about them in our culture. But in the local communities, like I talked about some negative myths, that there was some communities who used to believe that they are bad omen and they bring bad luck. So yeah, these things makes us realize that there are perceptions, and we need to look more of that angle, that how people consider them as good or bad, or explore more about it.
Yeah. So this is a question really for both of you. So why should people care about vultures? And then perhaps adding to that, what would happen if vultures were to just simply disappear tomorrow?
Well, I think we've already touched on a lot about how
Yeah.
they clean everything up. So if they were to disappear tomorrow, you would have a lot of probably
Yeah.
spreading of disease, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah,
And
feral dogs and
yeah, and carcasses would be there.
carcasses would pile up.
It's hard. Like a cow is a pretty big animal that a vulture, lots of them will take care of it.
Yeah.
And I think people should care as well because they're across the world. As I was saying, there's ones in North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Africa.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any in like Australia. I don't think they span that far, but they're all over the world, and they suffer from many different things. One of the major causes of vulture decline is diclofenac, and other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They were used a lot on animals like cows
as a painkiller.
Yeah, they would rub them on them, and then when they would be eaten by the vultures, it would build up in their system and cause them to decline. And that's a major cause. Another major cause that leads from is because they go after dead animals, they circle.
Yeah.
So hunters, like poachers, don't like them very much and will shoot them.
Yeah.
And sometimes even a vulture eating a shot animal might ingest lead and start to decline because of lead poisoning. And as Shivangi said, electrical wires, they can get electrocuted from them.
Yeah.
And another interesting one that I've seen is they can have drownings from going into reservoirs to drink water and then not being able to get out of the reservoir because they're too deep. And so they can suffer from drowning.
Oh,
wow.
that was
Okay.
So there's a lot of,
something
I
new.
think a reason we should care as well is because a lot of the decline is from human influence.
Mhm.
It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just natural decline, it's from our building of electrical wires, dams, hunting, and just outright people killing them because they don't like them.
Mm.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think we have a role to help repair that suffering that we've caused on these species.
Mhm.
Yeah, and talking about human influence, like human altered environment, like I remember one of my study sites, it is in Gonda, which is one of the city in my province where I studied in Uttar Pradesh. So there is a bone mill factory, and the Egyptian vultures used to come there in hundreds of numbers and just forage upon the heaps of crushed bones.
Mhm.
And so there was this time that the bone mill factory was closed, and so the Egyptian vultures numbers declined dramatically, and it was closed because of the smell and other complaints from the people
Mm.
around it. So yeah, so it's like sometimes it's like a double-edged sword. Like the human altered environment is sometimes like giving opportunities for wildlife, and at the same time, when the resources are not there, it is impacting the wildlife
Right. Yeah.
in adversely.
Mhm.
But
So
as you like humans, we can also do a lot to adjust the environment to help them because
yeah,
we can try and help to if we have. I'm sure we could have adjust how we do our power lines,
oh yeah,
or if their nesting sites are being disturbed, we could
Mm.
help to recreate nesting sites. There's a lot that humans can do to aid the environment as well
yeah,
as
yeah. And
what we've
Egyptian
done to harm
vultures
them.
reuse their nest for longer,
Really?
like for more than 30 years or so.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. And is it always the same pair that comes back, or?
Yes, most of the times, like they reuse their nest.
Yeah. Oh wow, that
It's
is
also
so
very
cool.
interesting behavior of Egyptian vultures.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So again, for both of you, what kind of advice would you give to young researchers who want to work on wildlife conservation?
Okay. So, what I would like to add is that have curiosity, but at the same time, have some patience, because field work is not always fancy. You have to do hard work, and it's all about patience, perseverance, and with humility, you have to approach the communities and build good relationship with the local people, learn from peer researchers, and if you really want to research, do research, you have to learn these major principles of like reaching out to people and having the patience to do the research work. It cannot be done overnight.
Mhm.
You have to spend some time. Yeah.
I think I would build on that. What Shivangi said is that take your time. Change won't happen with a snap of your fingers.
Yeah.
If you really are interested in conservation or wildlife, you have to start somewhere. So you got to start slow. You got to observe the animals. You got to learn about them. Like I'm specifically only looking at gut microbiomes. I'm not even learning about their behavior.
Yeah.
Change won't happen immediately. You have to take your time. It might take years.
Yeah.
And you have to collaborate with people to be able to make real change. You have to raise awareness. You have to get out there, talk.
Yeah.
Like even it's not specifically vultures, but like I'm volunteering now at the Alberta Institute for Wildlife Conservation to spread awareness about the wildlife that's in Alberta. And I think that's a big way that you can
Yeah.
start to help build conservation is
Exactly.
spreading knowledge on different animals and different species
Mhm.
and how they're interconnected and how they work together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of we've seen the world. Animals exist together all the time, whether they're predators or prey or
Yeah.
living symbiotically. There's a lot that goes into the environment that you have to think about with conservation.
Yeah.
And so I think it's not a short period of time. It's a long time thing. Like the California condor, it's now, I think, is it stable now in certain ranges. It was one time heavily endangered, and a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
effort went into recovering that population. I think it's at a pretty
Yeah.
stable position now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're at
Yeah.
a somewhat
Yeah.
stable
Now
level
I
now.
think they're somewhat stable with the efforts of like various institutions. And yeah, so that's what, like, collaboration is the key.
Yeah.
We have to work on this together, and instead of having like working in silos, we need to share, we need to communicate with the fellow researchers and other institutions to work together for this great cause, like conservation of, like you said, that wildlife, not just vultures. we are we are vulture aficionados, so we are talking about vultures more, but yeah, as a like broad perspective, we should think about all the species and wildlife and nature
Well, and you
conservation.
both also highlighted very nicely how by studying these birds, you both really started to feel a connection to them, and you both became fascinated by their diversity and their skills and abilities.
But even how we met was through
Oh yeah.
was through Shivangi's dedication to vultures, and I had just started my research, and we met, and it was overwhelming, the enthusiasm of Shivangi for vultures, and I had barely learned about them, and so it was very eye-opening to go from my starting point where I had been learning about vultures for probably about a month to someone who was an expert in the field and was so enthusiastic about it. The difference,
Oh.
I'm getting there. Eventually, I'll get there to that enthusiasm.
Oh no, that's so kind of you that you said that. But I really appreciate the way you agreed to talk about vultures in such a short notice. And to you, Miriam, for coordinating and for moderating the session. I am really grateful to you both. Thanks.
It's been my pleasure. Any other threats that you can speak to when it comes to vultures and their survival?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, that lack of awareness was like one of the most challenging thing I came across, including other threats like habitat destruction and feral dogs competition and electrocution from the unsafe power lines and sometimes the negative myths. But these are some of the threats I have observed working on Egyptian vultures. And adding to the habitat destruction part, I would like to add an incident which made me like so shocked, that at one of my sites, I used to visit that site every year. But so there were tall trees, the samal trees. In Hindi, we call it samal trees. I don't remember the scientific name right now. So these trees are very important for vultures to roost upon and to sometimes to nest upon. So there used to be so many trees at this particular site, and vultures used to roost in hundreds of numbers. But when I went back to that site after a while, like after a year, next year, and I saw that these trees were cut for the highway construction or some development around the area. So all of the vultures were disappeared from that site, and I just saw two individuals sitting on the electricity pylon, and it was really sad to witness that moment. And I was like, how, there should be something to be done, but I couldn't do anything because the trees were already gone.
Yeah.
And the vultures disappeared. So yeah, these moments made me realize that we need more targeted conservation strategies and thinking about the local perspectives also and the regional things. But yeah, there are other threats also, like diclofenac is very well known threat for other vulture species, like the gyps species in India. They are responsible for the mass decline of vulture species in India, as Zakie also mentioned about it, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, and it is given to the cattle when they are sick, and when they die, the vultures, when they feed upon those carcass, they get infected and with kidney failure, renal failure, they die. So, and so many institutions are working on their on this cause, And like, for example, Saving Asia's Vulture from Extinction is an organization led by Chris Bowden, and it collaborates with other organizations like BirdLife International, Bombay Natural History Society. And in Europe, it is like Vulture Conservation Foundation is one of the organizations working for the reintroduction programs and population monitoring and habitat protection thing. So yeah, together, all of these incidents show that we need targeted conservation strategies for different vulture species. And while the challenges are significant, the successes we are seeing at different regions gives us hope for their recovery worldwide. Zakie, would you like to add to this?
I think one of the major ones that you discussed there was the habitat destruction, because that's a worldwide thing that we see for not even just vultures. We see that for all animals and species, that it's a known that habitat destruction is a problem, that for all species, and vultures are just one of many that suffer from it. Everybody can see it when you're around, and it's possibly something that is debatable for whether it's necessary or not for development. But we see worldwide that they have to take down natural habitats, and there's been efforts many times, like making sure the trees are replanted and all that stuff to try and keep that habitat loss. But even in my backyard, there was a huge tree, and when they put in a new duplex, that tree's now gone. It was a huge apple tree. But that's a problem that we see worldwide. And so I think raising awareness for habitat destruction is probably a major thing that would help not just vulture species in conservation, but the environment conservation itself. The whole ecosystem is something that we'd want to conserve.
Right. Well, thank you both so much for this extremely interesting conversation. So as we wrap up today's conversation, a few things really stand out. So vultures are not just scavengers, they are also guardians of our ecosystems, cultural symbols, and a reminder of how every species has a role to play in the web of life. So thank you so much, Shivangi, for sharing your field stories and your wisdom from years of research, and for Zakie for giving us a glimpse into the exciting future of vulture science. And so to our listeners, if today's episode sparked your curiosity, broke a myth, or gave you a new appreciation for vultures, we'd love for you to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow the Soaring Tales on YouTube and Instagram to stay connected. Until the next time, keep your eyes on the skies and remember, the wild always has a story to tell.
Thank you.